Hello and welcome back to Scaled Down Customs. So on the workbench today is something a little bit different. I was at my local hobby store, MRS Hobbies, just perusing the shelves and came across this little gem. So I figured I would try this. My son's birthday is coming up and he loves NASA and space and all things related. So I saw this kit and I thought I should probably build this for his birthday. So that's what I'm going to do. So it's a Revell kit, which I thought was interesting. Looks like it's a 1/8 scale. There's kind of a sampling of what it's going to look like when it's done. And then just some of the parts tree and just some close-ups on some of the model, the particulars in it. So let's open her up and see what we got. Oh wow, that's quite a bit bigger than I was thinking it was going to be, but yeah, I guess it is 1/8 scale, but interesting. And it comes with glue and paint and everything required, even a little brush. Wow, that's nice. That's a nice addition. There's your moon surface base. Nice. And of course the instruction sheet. And a little sheet of some decals. Very clean, very crisp, like those. And then of course the Revell instruction sheet, which is in color, which makes it nice to kind of give a visual guide on what things should be looking like as you're building them out. So very nice. This should be fun. So something different, not cars, but yeah, again, I just saw this and it grabbed my eye, and my son loves NASA stuff, so I thought I would give it a shot. So we'll see how car model building skills transfer over to something like this. Nice tinted visor for the glass, for the helmet. Nice. Keep that in its plastic wrapper just to keep it from getting scratched. And then yeah. So not a lot of pieces. So yeah, around 24 pieces for this kit. So not a lot of pieces, but wow, that's going to be big. Cool. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is go get these over to the sink and get all the leftover mold release washed off, and start getting some parts fitted together and the seams cleaned up and ready for prime and paint. So let's go do that. Got everything over to the sink and cleaned up, so I'm just going to start cutting some pieces out and getting ready for assembly. And for that I'm just going to be using mostly my Tamiya flush cutters. So as you're trimming, just be careful not to trim off the glue mounting points that are sticking out. So just be careful with what you're trimming. I want to show you this tool I picked up a while ago. I actually picked this up at MRS Hobbies in Sandy, Utah. This is a Master Tools, and this is just an edge scraper. So you can see it's just flat and then it's tapered down to a point. It's not very sharp, and the blade is heavier, which is nice because then it gives me a nice solid scrape along my edges and mold lines. Whereas the hobby blade, number 11 X-Acto blade, which I used for quite a while, is good. It still works, but because it's so light and so sharp, sometimes it has a tendency to skip. Whereas this is a less of a sharp blade, heavier, and it gives me a nice smooth scrape along these edges to kind of clean up some of those mold lines and edges. Again, just a Master Tools. I don't know what it's called. I would assume like a mold line scraper or something like that, but another handy tool to have. Alright, so since I have bare plastic, the glue I'm going to be using is the Tamiya extra thin cement because it'll start to dissolve the plastic, and if you squeeze it together, sometimes it'll kind of squeeze out a little bit of plastic, and once you sand that down, it gives you a real nice, almost invisible seam that you don't have to backfill very much. So, and it gives you a really good bond once it sets up. So that's what I'm going to be using if I'm gluing plastic to plastic without it being painted yet. This is the glue I'll be using for that. And then I'm just going to be using some hobby clamps just to kind of hold everything together. Ooh, those might be too aggressive. Yeah, these might be too aggressive, but these might be too small. Yeah, those are too small. All right, so in that case, I'll be using some of these squeeze clamps here. Forget it. I'll just use my hands for now. All right, we're going to let that set up, but as you can see, not everything's lining up perfectly, so I'm going to have some seam work that I'm going to have to do, which is fine. Just going to be using some putty to fill that in, some of those seams and gaps, sand them down, so we'll keep moving ahead with some of the other pieces. All right, so as you can see, I've got some pretty good gaps there, and just, I mean, the seams are really visible on this kit. So, I mean, and if I try to sand them all down, I'll get rid of some of the texture. So I think I'm just going to try to smooth them off and clean them up just to mostly hide them, because like I said, I mean, that's going to take a ton of work to hide all these seams. So I'm just going to smooth them off as best I can. Try to blend them in without taking out a lot of the model detail, but I do have a lot of seam work that has to be done. So I'm going to be trying a couple different things. For my heavier gaps, I might try to use some of this perfect plastic putty. I picked up some of this Mr. Hobby dissolved putty. So this is quite a bit thinner, and this you just brush on. So it's probably going to take too many coats of that. So maybe I'll go with the putty first and then use this to kind of clean up some of the smaller areas. But anyway, I've got a lot of seam work to do, so maybe we'll start with the putty. And since I'm using the putty, I want to show you guys something. So I got this tip from Scale Model Experiment, and I've been looking for some effective ways to apply putty to the models on the seams. I've been using these little lab grade dipping sticks and scooping sticks, and I've been kind of using these, but they're, I don't know, the edge on them is too harsh, but these are the best thing I could find. So I've been using these mostly. And here's another lab spoon, and then just a painting blade that I found. So I've been using a combination of all these, mostly the smallest one, but I saw this on Scale Model Experiment, So I picked some of these up from Amazon as he suggested, and they work fabulously. So I'll be using these to kind of help spread some of this putty around. Holy cow, that makes this so much easier to apply this stuff. It just conforms to all the curves and lines, and then you can just kind of scrape along the outside and smooth everything off, pick up the excess. Wow, this is such a great idea. Outstanding. Yeah, that made this job so much faster and easier, like 10 times faster. Outstanding. All right, we're gonna let these pieces dry up, and then we've got a lot of sanding to do. All right, so that putty has dried up, and so now it's time for some sanding. And I really hate just the slow, methodical process of sanding, and this is going to be a ton of it, so I'm going to incorporate a couple extra tools. Of course, just my regular emery board sanding sticks, and then I'm going to use my power drill. And I've just got a bunch of various grits of sanding discs that have some Velcro backing, and then this is just a sponge that'll kind of help give the sanding disc a little more flexibility as I'm sanding. So I'm going to be using some machine sanding as well, just to kind of help speed this process up. So let's get the sanding. And then I am going to use just a little bit of water just to kind of help keep my sanding sticks from filling up too much. And just kind of aid the sanding process a little more. All right, so I've got my first pass of the seams sanded down, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the arms and legs on so that I can get a good bond, because I kind of want to get these seams kind of cleaned up a little bit as well, just to smoothen them off a little bit more so they're not quite as obvious. I mean, I think they're still going to be there, but just those big gaps, I just kind of want to make a little bit softer so they're not quite as obvious. So I think I'm going to go ahead and glue the arms and legs in so I can start kind of smoothing out some of those seams as well. And then hopefully we'll be ready for some primer soon. All right, well, that might make painting a little more difficult with the gloves and stuff, and I knew that beforehand, but I think that's really the only way to get these seams looking better than they are. So I'll let that dry up, and then we'll start doing some more seam work, and yep, just keep moving. All right, so in between life and work and everything else going on, I got the seams filled in, and I mostly started off using the perfect plastic putty for the larger gaps and then sanded that down, let that dry. And then to finish it off, I used this Mr. Hobby, Mr. Dissolved putty to just kind of finish up some of that. And that actually worked really, really well. So I'm pretty happy with that. And for my primer, I just used the Mr. Hobby, Mr. Surface 1000, the primer in a rattle can. I guess they call it a rattle can because it rattles. Anyway, little thing I figured out is, so I've always wondered what the difference between these two are, and so I bought both of them, and Doug with MRS has this one labeled as large, and this actually comes out a little bit thicker, and this one is a little thinner, so this works better for some of the smaller parts. So if you have large surface areas like this, then the blue background of Mr. Surface 1000 will give you a better coat. Whereas this goes on a lot finer, a lot lighter. The purple background is more for the smaller parts. Anyway, but this is the primer I've been using for all these parts because they're quite large. So got him looking pretty good. Sanded down in primer, ready for some paint. So I'm just going to do some touch-up sanding just to kind of smooth things off just a little bit more. But I got things, it's not totally round, but anyway. So just making progress, but I know I haven't posted for a while. So I'm going to get this video edited and posted so you guys can kind of see what I've been working on for the last little bit. So once again, this is the Revell kit, the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, the Apollo 11 Astronaut on the Moon kit. And as you can see, it's quite large, 1/8 scale, but it's been kind of an interesting build so far. I haven't ever done anything like this, so it's been kind of fun. But anyway, I'm going to get this thing posted up so you guys can see what I've been working on. So I think that'll do it for this video. So make sure you stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.